12:06 PM on March 9th, 2023. This is the Economic Development Advisory Committee meeting. We're commencing with a roll call. Let me go through the list. Sethak Ganai? Not present. Kiana Gindi?
Present.
John Vivian?
Here.
Arturo Dominguez? Not here. Julian Ratnowski? Present. George Altgeld? Not present. Elia Guerrera? Not present. Arturo Garcia?
Present.
Not here either. And Ray Rocha?
Arturo's here, Mr. I'm here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Arturo. I didn't, it's hard to see through this cam. Yeah, if you can. I see more stuff than I do the actual committee.
Oh, well, no, we're 50-50.
There we go.
Thanks, John.
Okay, so moving on to citizen comments. Staff, are there any citizens?
Sorry. Hold on, Julian. Hold on. I am going to.
Did we just lose him?
Just your voice. Go ahead.
Hold on, it'll bring us back.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
It'll hootie up again.
This one knows.
Okay.
I broke it. Sorry, Julian.
How did the meeting go yesterday?
Just a couple of
Do I call you?
business owners. The feedback I got from so there's a WhatsApp business thread for downtown restaurant bars. I wasn't aware of that, led by Cash. So he reached out to quite a few. I got a couple of phone calls through, and many of them are out of town. So I'd like, but everybody's interested in it, at least the feedback I got from one of their representatives. So I would like to move forward with another meeting earlier in the week, probably Monday or Tuesday. I just think it's a better time for the owners to actually get together. Once you get to Wednesday, Thursday, it's a lot more difficult for them, just because, well, either they're out of town or B, they were kind of already working on their week. But for a lot of them, their week pretty much starts on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Some of the feedback, though, they were just, some of them were a little confused. They thought that we still had a temporary sidewalk parklet permit currently ongoing, and that it was like, it would cost an estimated $500 to like continue to go throughout for the rest of the year, which isn't accurate information. So if we are interested, I think I have to try to keep those conversations. I have to reel everybody back into what exactly the purpose of the meeting is. Because once you start talking about, well, this is an ordinance we're trying to push forward and a proposal we're trying to work with to get through city council, people start talking about how frustrated they are with city politics, and I have to reel them back in and be like, no, I understand your frustration and I get it, and I'm happy to talk to you more about that. But right now, I really want your feedback on this particular permit. I really like to get your feedback on what the application fee, the process itself, and we really trying to make this very cost efficient, cost effective for you guys, and maximize your revenue and your space. So you see kind of the conversation going a little bit away from the purpose, and then wanting just to really talk about their frustrations with the city. So I'm sure you guys get that a lot.
We're back to that, you can hear us.
Guys?
Can you hear us? No?
Or maybe not. Or at least they can't hear us.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
But we're very receptive, and it's really nice to see that they have a group that together, which makes it a lot easier to reach out to them and set something up for Monday or Tuesday. I'm going to propose Tuesday, just because it's just I think Monday, a lot of people are still open on Sundays, so it may be easier for them to meet on Tuesday. Tuesday's kind of a down, it's for restaurant bars.
Oh, you can hear us. Hold on.
Okay, good.
No, I can't hear you guys.
Can you hear us?
No, Arthur, I can't hear you guys.
Tell them we're just gonna reboot it.
They're texting me.
My response to that is, well, I get it.
Julian,
You always want to stay in the loop, but it's also,
Yes.
I think we should gain some traction and really get a little bit more feedback. I think her being involved in what we're doing or for her to know our progress or lack of progress is a good thing, but ultimately, I think,
That's what you
I think
want.
as a subcommittee, I think we need to really get into the nuts and bolts of what we're trying to do and obviously get that feedback from our
Julian, can you hear us?
local restaurant bar owners.
Yeah, we can hear you guys now.
We're back.
Okay, so, where we last left off with citizen comments,
There were,
were there any citizen comments that were submitted?
no, sir, not at all.
Okay, so on that, moving on to approval of minutes for February 16, 2023. A question I just have briefly, was the video ever posted? Because I never really had a chance to review the minutes, I usually go back to the video.
We'll confirm, I mean, we did talk to City Secretary's office about that, Julian, and, their expression was that it will be. We haven't checked, I don't know when the last time you checked, but if it's not up, we'll be sure to get it up, because we had the failed video in the room, but we had the WebEx recording. That should be what's posted.
Which meeting minutes are you approving? Or are they?
They're right after the agenda. It should be in the March tab. Right there, those.
Hello? Yeah.
Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from February 16, 2023?
We still have some committee members that are going over it, Julian.
Okay. Yeah, I have not been able to because when I checked, the video wasn't posted, so.
I mean, you can always pass them, we can always look to approve the February and March minutes on the next one. It's up to you, Mr. Chairman, if you want to wait.
I'd like to read them, Mr. Chairman, and I didn't get a chance to read them.
So let's move to, if unless I hear a motion, I say, we can, or I guess, motion to postpone the approval of the minutes. to the following meeting.
Motion to table the minutes until the next meeting?
Okay, I'll second that.
Works.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to action items. A, update and discussion of possible action on the proposed City of Laredo permit sidewalk, cafe, and parklet ordinance. So there have been 2 meetings that have been done thus far. The subcommittee is me, Arturo, and Ray. So on the first meeting that we had one business owner and not just a business owner, but one of the active participants in the parklet ordinance voiced their concerns with certain items in the packet, which were referencing security gates, which he believed limited his actual security. So he was asking for those things to be amended to essentially whatever might he deemed to be secure.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to recognize Mr. George Algett, is here for the meeting also.
Hey, everybody.
Okay, great. We'll mark him as present. The other concern that was voiced by him was in reference to the really high insurance requirement that used to exist. We did point out that that has now been reduced to a very normal requirement, like when you look at other commercial developments and if they were tenants of those establishments. And then he also brought up the concern of the $1,500 fee that was being assessed that would be yearly. That was also a concern that Arturo and I brought up, that, we really don't know, the demand. All we do know is the fact, I'll let Arturo, give his interpretation of this, but at least from the discussions that I've had with individuals that have decided not to move forward, it's been due to the cost of the parklet. So we believe that $1,500 fee, at least in the meantime, until we can determine a major, calling this a success or not, shouldn't be included. And that is the yearly fee, not the application fee. But Arturo, if you'd like to chime in and
Well, I'm looking at I assume that, let me ask the question first to staff. What's in our packet is the revised draft ordinance of what the cost is. So I'm looking at it, Julian, and I guess staff has been kind of like listening to our concerns over the cost. If you want to look at section 18-39, fees and duration, which has been basically the item of discussion, it's in the March tab, John, and, under the ordinance.
Yeah.
And it's in page 5, section 1839, fees and duration. I guess our main concern had been the fee structure, since we had zero, parklets, and we're trying to hopefully, I guess, push this program and make the incentive available so that people are interested in applying and we can have people do parklets. I think the staff is on the right track. They still have the $150 application fee. They gotta cover staff costs for reviewing the application and their time, but at least, the initial and annual permit fee shall be waived. And then, am I understanding that correctly, Amber?
Yes, and if I could address just real quick. So also what's added kind of, so House of Whiskey it doesn't kind of fit anywhere, right? So I added language in here called a street patio.
Oh, okay.
So he would fall under a street patio and not the parklet.
Oh, okay.
So his fee structure would be the first one.
Oh, his fee structure would be okay. Okay, that's understandable. And then the second one, it's $150 application fee, the initial, would be waived, and then the first year renewal would be $250.
Forever.
Oh, that's an annual.
So
permit
how's
fee.
that, the street patio would be what now? I didn't quite understand.
So if I may, Chairman? Julian, is it okay?
yes, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yes.
So since House of Whiskey is kind of our only successful, we're calling it a parklet, but it's been difficult to kind of jam them into the parklet. And it's been really helpful meeting with everybody. So I did a lot of research, and I think we can call it something else. It's basically an extension of a sidewalk cafe. It just extends into the street. And with a parklet, you're building a structure, and for House of Whiskey, they have to take it down because they have traffic that comes through.
Okay, so you just divided A and B, you divided, yeah, I see where B is a parklet. So there's different fee structures for.
So it gives flexibility to the program.
Right.
Right, am I correct?
Yes, because we also have the bar across the street that's wanting to do it. There's also other businesses, there are empty buildings that could also take advantage of a street patio. And it's just, it doesn't cost the same economically to the city or to the business to have basically the street patio idea as it is to build the parklet. And so I was like, why don't we actually tailor it for this scenario? Because we have more businesses who are already trying to take advantage of that scenario, but we don't have language. So I created language, and it's more of a sidewalk cafe because they're putting out some tables and
They're putting out-
chairs,
they're
But
putting-
they
we gotta
don't,
break it down.
they don't have to pay an annual permit renewal fee at beginning of the third year.
No.
The street patios, but the parklets do, so I don't know if there should be, why the differentiation.
So I talked to traffic, because I wanted to get an estimate so if somebody were to build a parklet, the structure that stays and maintains itself in a metered parking space, how much yearly does the city make on those parking meters? And so it obviously is gonna depend where the location of the parking meter is and how active that area is. So like, the more active areas make about $3,000 a year. And the real hidden ones that are off to the side, they make about $100 a year. So it's really gonna depend. So I kind of met in the middle, and just.
But I thought maybe in the sidewalk cafes and the street patios, you still wouldn't have that revenue from the
Yeah,
meters.
the annual permit renewal fee is really just for yearly for the inspections to come out and make sure that everything is within code and just to kind of cover the cost of the city, but also waiving that initial year because you're having to pay
Yeah, no,
the.
but as far as the third year, I guess the justification for the parklet, for the fee for the parklet, that you're gonna miss out on meter revenue. But aren't you gonna miss out on meter revenue for the cafe, for the
For the street patios?
yeah, for the street patios?
No, because those streets are shut down, so nobody can park there.
Okay.
So we're not,
I got
there's
you.
no economic,
This is an example right here, Jen, of.
But that may be only specific to that street.
yes,
And
yes.
so how are you gonna work around that?
That's why I built it in, because, before, this street is shut down and this business is getting to take advantage of it. This one wants
Okay.
to. And then there are businesses across this way that we can't really see
Yeah.
that are empty that could also build that up and use that as well. So we're kind of
Gotcha.
creating an opportunity.
Okay.
We might as well. I mean, the street is shut down.
It's just making it more flexible so staff can be able to say yes.
Yeah. And make it make sense.
Okay,
Got it.
that makes sense to me now.
Now-
I have a question regarding the fees. So, just so I can get this correct in my head, when referring to a parklet versus a sidewalk and cafe street patio, if they are not taking up a parking spot, they are not a parklet.
Yes.
It's not the permanent structure, it's where, or I'm going to remove the term permanent. It's not the
Yeah, it's the same.
structure, it's where it is. So they can build a structure on the sidewalk, and it be considered a sidewalk cafe or street patio, as long as it's removable at the end, then they would qualify for the $250, versus if they're taking up a literal parking spot, that's when it's considered a parklet.
Yes and no. They don't have to take it down on the sidewalk as long as you're meeting that ADA requirement. So if they put up a structure on the sidewalk, I also took that language out, as long as you leave that. So that's kind of more just for the sidewalk cafes. If they're leaving that walkway for pedestrians, they don't need to take it down. It's kind of silly to be putting it up and taking it down. So they can leave it up, and the same thing with the street patios, the stuff that they've built on the sidewalk, as long as there are the 36 inches for people to walk and get by and meet those ADA requirements, you don't necessarily have to take it down. But what you're asking is correct, yes, like, as long as you're not building a structure in a paid meter space, then you wouldn't fall under a parklet.
Mr. Chairman, Arturo speaking. I want to just give a summary to George and to,
Elon.
Elan.
Yes.
Just basically what happened at the last meeting is we questioned the fee structure and they were wanting to charge $1,500 for a permit.
Whoa.
Yeah, so, it was kind of like a disincentive.
Yearly.
Yearly.
Right.
So we kind of said, hey, incentivize it, we know you gotta charge, but, kind of like build it up, to
Right.
where the investment goes into the parklet and then, you get that development and.
You have a picture of a built parklet right now?
And then you're, hopefully, there's increased.
Can you guys just Google it?
Well, I'm familiar with, because, I mean, I've seen them in California when COVID happened, and I guess my plain devil's advocate here is that if they're not done right, they can be a real eyesore. And so my only concern would be that people aren't executing in a professional fashion, that they'll end up making it look like a homeless shelter on the side of the street.
Well, there are lots of building requirements for the actual parklets. It doesn't really show that it's in a parking.
And these are limited, I'd like to make sure this is stated, these are only limited to bars and restaurants, right? Not
Yes.
shops. A shop cannot expand into the sidewalk and then throw stuff to sell, correct, under this policy?
Yes, yeah, it's just.
Because
restaurants.
I'll tell you right now, that will be done and it will look bad
Yes.
if we allow that.
No, it's limited to restaurants and bars.
Okay.
And we've also created and modeled after Austin, a guidebook for the building of the structure. And so,
Are they gonna submit plans and all? Okay.
yeah, it's a very in-depth process, which is another reason why I wanted to separate out, the situation with, House of Whiskey, cause, they're not building anything, they don't, they're not taking up any space, they're not having to do all that. This is like, we definitely have to make sure that if something's
Sure.
gonna stay permanent, not
When
permanent.
done right, it's a great addition, I just wanted
Yeah.
to make sure.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So, Mr. Chairman, just to follow up on that, just so they could get that summary of where we were at last time. And the fee structure now that he's got under that section, that staff has under that section, I mean, to me, looks appropriate. It's almost like an incentive now, so it's reasonable too. So I'd be supportive of it now, but I don't know what everybody else thinks.
I agree.
Yeah.
Ray, you want to talk about your meeting that you had?
Yes, one, they're very eager to have a second meeting. There weren't very many people involved in this meeting because it was a Wednesday and there were people out of town and people kind of getting ready for their week. So I would like to propose another meeing on a Monday or Tuesday. But to kind of piggyback off of what Julian mentioned earlier, the 1,500 was steep for the people I spoke with. And also, once that came to play, I mentioned that, hey, your feedback is really important. We really want the perspective of a local business, a local restaurant or bar owner to take back and kind of get your thoughts on how feasible this is, including your thoughts on the fee. So this information that we were just speaking of is really, we cleared up quite a bit. And I think they would be more than happy with a $250 permit fee. I don't anticipate a lot of people going the parklet route. I do anticipate quite a bit more movement with a sidewalk cafe or an extended street patio. So the $250 is reasonable. And just to be clear, is $250 annually until the third year where there's no longer a fee, or did I understand that?
I'm sorry, I took a bite. It's actually the first year, the fee will just be waived. And
Okay,
then
okay.
following that, the renewal fee just annually is
$250,
$250.
$500, then,
No, it's just $250, like,
this is for
yeah.
the cafe. Sorry.
Which does not include the $150 of the initial application fee.
Yes,
Right.
there'll
And that
be,
application fee will have to be renewed or reapply every year?
no, they don't have to reapply every year, no.
Okay. So just a one hit of $150, and then the second year and on, it would be $250 for the year.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's much, I think people are gonna be a lot more happier with that than what I was introducing earlier.
I have an interesting question. What is the money for the room, once the renewal fees start kicking in, because is that money gonna be, what is that money used for? Because after something has been applied for, I'm assuming, and Arturo, with his experience, may be able to answer this question, I understand that the city is generating revenue, but I think the goal of this program is to once again, bring back a blighted area. Can those fees that are being generated be reinvested into street cleaning along each of that street, or something to support this program?
That would be really interesting.
That would be nice to see,
Yeah.
for sure.
Julian, Mr. Chairman, Arturo speaking again. The building application fee goes direct to, the direct cost to building department for the review and their time and reviewing it and everything that they got. The permit itself, well, yeah, it's council's discretion to say if they wanted to put that money direct into just downtown or just put it into the general fund. I mean, it's up to them.
Well, maybe that's a recommendation we can make on something with an EDAC, and then a recommendation we make to council, because I would only assume, unless there were costs truly incurred to the city after the renewal, so after the application and everything, then I can understand why those need to go there. But since we're looking at this through the lens of economic policy, we should give a recommendation to reinvest those funds either into improvements along the streets that a lot of these bars are at, or possibly just street cleanings, or additional, it's very minuscule. I really doubt we're gonna raise a lot of money here, but,
It's a good start.
it's a good start towards reinvestment or possible movement towards a budget that can create another policy that can help. This blighted
So
area.
from a business owner standpoint, I think that would go a really long way. Like, it's not a lot of money, but it's that act that the city is doing. The fact that you're reinvesting that money back to downtown or their area goes a really, really long way. Like, I think that would make huge strides in, again, trying to connect, city politicians, city staff with, local businesses. Because there is a disconnect there. I was saying to you earlier, based on my conversation, it was pretty difficult to keep, the owners on point with what the meeting, the goal of the meeting was. Because ultimately, they really just wanted to talk about their, how disheartened they are and how disappointed they are with the lack of city support. So I think Julian's idea would go, it was a step in the right direction to kind of rebuild that relationship with local business owners in the city.
And Julian,
I'm sorry?
I just, if I may, I just had a question for Amber. Well, kind of just to point out, so, this is a good example of the inclusion of the street patio and the sidewalk cafe, to include in the parking, to say, if you wanted to do the parking at the parking meter, you could do it. If you didn't want to, you could do the sidewalk cafe. Since this is a closed street, if you wanted to do the street cafe, you could choose which one would better suit you. Okay, I got it. They don't have to do the parklet if they have a park meter in front. They can still choose to do the sidewalk cafe instead. Okay.
Amber, I have a question.
Yes.
Can they do both?
Yes. And
So is the fee both together? If they
So-
do both?
right now, what I wanted to word it in the permit would be basically a sidewalk cafe and a street patio. A street patio is just an extension of sidewalk cafe, so you're getting both already. Cause the street patio is gonna go from the sidewalk on, so,
Yes.
but if you wanted to do both a sidewalk cafe / street patio and a parklet, you could, but those would be two applications. Or it'd be one application, but you would be requesting both of those permits. They would be the two permits. But the sidewalk cafe / street patio, the street patio is just an extension of the sidewalk cafe, so they're really just they're the same.
Let me just ask the specific example, because this is, so for most, at least bars, they are not allowed to break the separation between whatever they consider their front door to be and this patio, meaning if they only had a parklet and they didn't have a fence extending towards that parklet,
Right.
they would legally be able to use it.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to understand for
I think I don't think you would need, I think maybe we'll just leave it like that then. Like, cause or maybe add some verbiage that, if you have a parklet, then it would include that sidewalk space too. Cause you shouldn't have to have both. Cause you're right, like.
Yeah, that's what I'm just trying to clarify.
Yeah.
One, they don't have to apply for both, because they shouldn't.
Yeah.
It needs to be assumed that if you're getting a parklet, that you're essentially getting also that patio space in the front. But I just also want to make sure, we're talking about the fees right now, but if for some reason that's looked at differently, we're not talking about the fees, they're gonna double up if you want a parklet, because you're gonna need the.
Yeah, cause it doesn't work both ways. Like, if I have a parklet, it would include that sidewalk space, but if I have a sidewalk cafe, it doesn't include a parklet. So it's
Okay.
like the reverse is not true, so.
That's fine, yeah. I just want to make sure that if we have that understanding, that if someone's applying for a parklet, legally, it is assumed in that application that it's including all the space up to the parklet.
Yeah, I'll add something in there that says that.
So right now, if somebody wanted to extend their patio temporarily, what would be the process? If like someone wanted to apply for one right now?
We don't have a.
So there is no, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know that's what we're working on this, but I had another business owner saying that he did apply for a temporary parkland or a temporary extension to his patio. So I was a little confused as to that, and I do think that obviously we're going through this now, but I don't know if we had something temporarily in place before, until we get this up and going and approved.
They did have.
Maybe he was just a little confused.
They did have a temporary ordinance for the parklets, but I'm not sure if Mr. Hickle is still giving out the permits for it. I'm not sure.
Mr. Chairman, can I just chime in, Arturo, again? Ray, are you talking about like something like your patio, when we were doing, Rochas out there, where you're talking, a non-downtown, but more of a outside patio at a bar type deal, like in North Florida? Where you can extend to the parking lot?
The downtown area,
Oh,
yeah.
oh,
But I'm assuming we meant something similar to what I had, I can only assume.
oh,
Which would be, probably that would be considered now a street patio, correct? Or no?
well, the thing to it, with the example, when it comes to like, let's say, I think we're all familiar with your restaurant, Rochas. Ray was trying to extend out to the parking lot. The ordinance for parking, your parking requirements interfere with that now, since they did away with that limited time pandemic or parklet. So you wouldn't,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be able to do it, but, you know what I mean? Unless they include
Oh,
it
yeah.
in this ordinance. You kinda get me?
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah, no, this wasn't for me, this was for one of the owners in the downtown area. They was asking about how he had applied recently for a temporary, extension. But going back to my little section there, what would that be considered?
Well, that's, now, here's the issue, Amber, like, I knew it was gonna, I'm glad Ray's popping up this question. Like, this is kinda geared to when you have a business and you have a street right connected to, like this. Like, when you have a business up in North Laredo during the pandemic, the ordinance waived the parking requirements for bars and restaurants, so you could extend out and eat up to 20% of your parking requirement and put an outside patio. So I think to cater to also to, I mean, I don't know, we're catering to like a north side business, or no, I don't wanna say north side business, but a non-downtown type a business that wants to expand their patio into the parking, I mean,
Yeah, I think it would
would
just
this be okay or not?
it would just be a different ordinance, because this one is all based on the public right of way. And the parking lot in these businesses are not public right of ways, they're private property. And so all of the sidewalk cafe, the street patios, the parklets, those are all using up public right of way. So when you talk about lessening up the parking requirements.
That would be a separate, in other words, just to answer your, I think, and I don't know if I'm answering it correctly, I'm just putting my previous hat on. It would be a note to you, Ray, at this point, like if you wanted to extend out your patio, because you'd be eating up into your parking requirements. You kinda get me?
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, this was more about downtown,
Yeah.
but just, we can talk about my situation on a different meeting, just so we don't stay stuck on this too long.
Yeah.
But I'm not actually, eating up any parking space. Mine was just a path,
Oh, yeah,
to get around to a parking area, but I actually wasn't, occupying any parking space by extending my patio. And from the fire department standpoint, it was approved because there were other means to enter and exit that area, yeah. So I don't think it would be an issue, but that's not what this conversation is about.
I guess-
Anyway, let's add to that, I hope that, yeah.
I guess, Mr. Chairman, that would be like a separate ordinance that we'd have to look at to be able for them to allow for other businesses to partake of outside patio.
Okay.
Right, Amber? Am I correct?
Yeah, I think so, so less than the parking.
So I did speak to, I represent Councilmember Elizabeth Segovia, and she wanted to kind of be updated on where we're at, but also she kind of voiced how we don't need to rush. So I'm glad to hear that Ray's mentioning that there are other bars and restaurants that want to voice their opinion, so let's set up that next meeting before, I would say, we send this to council.
Okay.
I would say,
Yeah.
if I can, Chairman, the only
Yes.
other thing that would be good to have the other bars look at, because it was a little bit of a roadblock for me on Iturbide. How do we balance the businesses on both sides of the road without making it a convoluted, verbiage in the ordinance? So I think on page 2,
When you say balance, can you give an example of a situation where,
so we have House of Whiskey, who has, I'm just gonna call it a street patio now, has a street patio, and, On the Rocks would like to have one. So they're both wanting to use that space for their street patios. So how do we decide how much of that space do they get? And so when we were talking to, I'm sorry, I forgot his name, the owner of House of Whiskey, when he was here, he was saying that, instead of leaving walking space on the sidewalk, right now, they were leaving space, in the street. So I took that idea from him and I tried to simplify it, but this may not be the best way to do it. I just kind of wasn't sure. So I just said, basically the site plan for the proposed area, will be like, you can use up to 1/3 into the street, from curb into 1/3 into the street, 1/3 will be left open, and the other person would get 1/3. So everybody's getting a third, a third, a third. And that was, I talked to traffic on that because I needed to get the measurements specifically of Iturbide, because we also have to make sure we have at least 36 inches, and that's the bare minimum. It really should be closer to 4 feet. And so I was like, if I gave both sides 1/3 of the street, would I have 4 feet in the middle? And I think it left me with 7 feet in the middle. I wanna say, I could be wrong, but I think it left me with 7. But this also is just for this street, and we have different widths of the streets. And so I didn't know how to marry that situation other than by saying, everybody from curb to curb, you get 1/3 from your business out, you get 1/3 from your business out, and 1/3 will remain open for travel.
if 4 feet is ideal, why can't we not define it by the pedestrian right of way and say, from the center line of the street, the city will have 2 feet to the right, 2 feet to the left, and the remainder is the parklet.
Okay, 2 feet
Or,
to the right. I just.
so that gives you the 4 feet, you're saying 3 feet is minimum, 4 feet is ideal, well,
Yeah.
let's call it 4 feet.
Yeah, I just didn't know how to verbalize it, and so I was really struggling with that. 2
The
feet.
only thing I caution that we just need to make sure on when I'm assuming traffic gets involved is the center of the street is not always the center of the street
Yeah,
in downtown.
yeah,
So whatever, like I wouldn't say you measure out the street and find the center, because then we may get into issues, because we do have properties that have sidewalks that are not actually city sidewalks. So it's almost like the street is pushed over. So I would just, I don't know, I don't know if our colleague can help me here.
Yeah,
How would we define the center of the street?
the way I would kind of look at it, if I were, I mean, when I was having the difficulty with having to figure out House of Whiskey back then, I was the minimum requirement, so you want 4 feet, Amber, I mean, which is what, you know, we kind of want for walking. Just put at minimum, you know, 4 feet must be provided from the nearest edge of each side, that's it.
it's
Make
just
it real
hard,
simple.
cause if only one person has the street patio, I don't know how to say that. Cause if the other side doesn't have a street patio, I don't know how to measure it. So like if I were House of Whiskey and I said I left 4 feet, but I left 4 feet, I went all the way across and I left 4 feet next to the curb. So I don't know how to say that, like you have to leave space for the other business to also do it,
Oh, gotcha.
So leave 2 feet from the center of the street.
yeah.
A parklet or cafe, I guess in that circumstance,
Yeah,
is
we-
not,
It would be the 4 feet, 2 feet on each side, that's it,
In the middle.
yeah.
okay.
So
Then
I,
let's do it that way.
and I'm going curb to curb because of that whole sidewalk thing, cause like your sidewalk might be 8 feet, your sidewalk might be 10 feet. So I put curb to curb.
Okay. Okay,
Okay. Okay, I'll work on that one.
that sounds like a solution. And we can always revisit it, you know, in the future if it's a
Yeah,
problem.
absolutely.
Are there any other questions or recommendations from any of the committee members?
No, sir.
On that, I'd like to just make a very basic motion until we get the complete feedback, but my motion would be to reinvest any of the renewal fees, not the application fees, but the renewal fees into possibly additional security or basic street cleaning or additional services in the downtown.
Second,
Yeah, I agree.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Discussion with possible action on the election and appointment of the EDAC vice chair. So I placed this item on the agenda because we did recently elect a vice chair, but she no longer is a part of EDAC. So right now, all we have is a chair. If anyone would like to nominate someone or nominate themselves,
I nominate Arturo Garcia.
I'll nominate George Ogden.
are there any others?
I'll do it. Or go, John, I mean, you've been here long.
No, I've already been chairman. I'll have somebody else.
Kevin does.
We need the young blood, fresh blood.
Yeah.
All right,
Younger guy.
I'm okay with it, you're gonna take a vote.
Okay, well, I vote to nominate, or I motion to place Arturo Garcia as vice chair for the Economic Development Advisory Committee.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to announcements, if anyone would like to bring anything up, this would be the time.
I have an announcement. Due to philosophical differences with my elected official, I'll be tendering my resignation effective the end of the meeting today.
Oh.
It's great working with all y'all. I think, but I barely, you know, we had one meeting, it's good, but it was
Maybe
a
over
pleasure
there or something.
hanging with
Either way.
y'all. Councilmember Perez.
Oh,
Yeah, Ines.
Okay.
I have another announcement, Julian. I know that you were part of the Laredo Economic Development Corp meeting where they're looking at the Economic Development Strategic Plan. And so I think we need to be a part of it, or we need to do our part. I think them doing their part and our doing our part, we need to, I guess, coordinate with them and see how we can get that document and make it dynamic, because we have a lot of the map as to how to handle economic development, and I think it's be best to coordinate with them. I don't know if y'all have any thoughts on that.
Are you referring to the Viva Laredo Comprehensive Plan?
That's
on the
correct.
section on economic development?
That's
No,
correct.
I agree with that. We, to highlight, one of the reasons we're missing staff today is a lot of them have gone to DC. And from what I was able, and John noticed also, is that we seem to all be, in our own little rooms deciding what we're gonna go to DC for, and there didn't seem to be that much coordination. And I think we need to try to bind not just our EDAC, but make sure that EDC and the city are all on the same plan moving forward, especially for the next meeting.
And I know, George, you've been a part of the cities, and I've been part of the chamber. And so it looks bad if you go to, I guess, to the rep and, or to the, or to their, what do you call it, their people that help them out, and then the city goes in, so it looks bad. We gotta make a concerted effort to go together. Their staff, the rep staff and the Senate staff.
Yep, I agree 100%. Any other announcements?
I have something real quick, and
Yes.
I haven't done sufficient homework on what the current policies are for food truck parks, but this obviously pertains to us. We have the property across from Alexander High School. We have 3 food trucks now, and I'd like to bring up just maybe talking about creating more of a established structure on food truck parks. I don't know if this is the appropriate place to do it, but excuse me for not having the experience, but I think that it's worth talking about, because we actually have had many interested food truck applicants, I guess you would say, that would want to come on, and we want to make sure we do it right. And I just figured it's going to end up coming around to different parts of the city. So,
We do have, from my understanding, a food truck policy, but if that needs to be updated, I think let's ask staff to present what we currently have. I think this is exactly the organization that goes through, just because a lot of cities have taken on food truck policies because in its own way is economic development. You see these businesses that can't necessarily go into a retail space or can't afford it, start in a food truck, and then eventually graduate into a retail space. So it is a way to help a lot of small business grow. So yes, let's bring it to EDAC.
sounds great.
Roger that.
If I could real
Any
quick,
other announcements?
I'll wait till after.
Okay.
No, sir.
With that being said, I move to adjournment. Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, thank you, everyone.